For this afternoon and tonight, a significant winter storm, including heavy snow with blowing and freezing snow.
Hello and welcome to the SnowBrains podcast, where it's my job to interview the most intelligent people in the snow sports industry and pass their fascinating knowledge onto you, our listeners. I'm your host, Miles Clark. I'm a professional free skier, a mountain guide, an Alaska heli ski guide, UC Berkeley molecular cell biology graduate, the founder and CEO of SnowBrains, and I just got down to Argentine Patagonia for my 14th season here. I've been coming down here since 2009. And this has most certainly become my happy place. Thanks, Argentina. This episode of the SnowBrains podcast is brought to you by Club Med. Are you ready for an unforgettable ski getaway that takes care of everything? And I mean everything. Head to one of Club Med's mountain resorts where you can experience the thrill of the slopes without worrying about a thing. With their all-inclusive packages, you'll get all your lift tickets, ski passes, ski and snowboard lessons for all ages and ski levels, delicious meals, exciting après-ski activities, and even childcare for the kids, all included in the price. So you can focus on what matters most, carving perfect turns and enjoying the breathtaking views. Visit www.clubmed.us or call 1-800-CLUB-MED or call your travel advisor to book your ski escape today. My guest today is Kyle Siegel. Kyle is the founder and designer of Raide Research backpacks. Raide makes lightweight, tough as hell backpacks for ski mountaineering and more. Kyle's history is super interesting, with stints working at the North Face as well as SpaceX. I've been using his packs for about 9 months now, and it's the first technical pack I've ever had, and it's blown my mind. Hello, Kyle. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here. How are you, man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
We're stoked to have you here. I'm excited to learn more about this pack and everything that you're brewing up. You know, I always ask a couple warm-up questions, so I like to ask, where are you going to ski next?
Ooh, I have aspirations of doing a Southern Hemisphere trip, either in Chile or New Zealand, but nothing on the books yet.
Nice. And do you have anything actually planned for the coming winter?
You know, I used to be a big planner, and now I'm more of a book last minute, follow the conditions guy. But I will be going to Japan, hopefully.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah, Japan in January is the move, man. I spent 4 seasons out there. It's amazing. Kyle, today I really want to get into your impressively nerdy background and how you've created a major disruptor in the backpack space. You know, I've been using your Raide 40-liter pack for about 9 months now, and I can't wait to learn more about the story behind it. So let's kind of jump right into your history, if you will. Tell us a bit about your background and how you got started in the world of engineering and design.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, like I was always just like math, science guy, love building things. I grew up in Chicago, so I skied like a couple days a season, went out west to school in California for engineering. And
Where'd
then
you go?
I went to Harvey Mudd College. It's one of the Claremont colleges.
Very cool.
Just being able to, like, even though it was a 5-hour drive to Mammoth, just being able to drive to good skiing instead of fly was a game changer. And being able to ski like 20 days a year from 3 days a year was like insane to me. Which is now is like nothing, but that was like huge at the time. And I became like, I did the ski bump thing after college. I was a ski instructor in Vail for a couple of years. But while I was in college, I interned at SpaceX and then worked there after college as well. And kind of like bounced back and forth between being a ski bum and having like more traditional, let's say, like corporate engineering roles before trying to merge the two. And that's when I got a job at the North Face, because I was like, I want to apply like my engineering to outdoor product, and was able to convince North Face to let me have a job there.
Well done, man. So now is Raide Research your company? Is that your only gig, or are you still working other places?
I still am working at another tech company where I manage an engineering team, but that will be ending in the fall.
And you're going to go all in on Raide.
Yep.
Wow, congratulations. That's a big move, man. And that's
I'm excited.
That's kind of the move. I did that with SnowBrains, and that's where things really got heated and started moving forward. So you have a mechanical engineering degree from Harvey Mudd. Give us a little idea how your education shaped your approach to product design and development.
I think like one, when you're an engineer, you kind of just, at least at Harvey Mudd, they did a really good job of giving you the mindset that just like you can solve anything you want. There's like not really a limit. And then you also approach everything from like a problem perspective. And that was like, yeah, a learning I've applied to Raid from being an engineer and like working at SpaceX this may like sound obvious to some listeners, but for Raid, I start with like a problem that I have as an athlete and try to solve it with product. Other product in the outdoor industry sometimes can come from like a category that a company is trying to fill. For example, they might just be like, we need a 3-layer hard shell that's $400 because we have the distribution and all of our competitors are making it. And they'll have some functions they want it to fulfill, but they don't necessarily start from a problem first. I start from a problem or a set of problems, and then my goal is to just make the best product to solve those problems. And then whatever it kind of costs at the end of solving that is what it costs.
And I suppose, and you're based in Carbondale, Colorado. So I suppose that you're discovering these problems by being out there in the field, backcountry skiing, skiing at ski resorts. How many days a year do you ski, and how much time do you spend in the backcountry?
Honestly, like I stopped counting my days. Every season I'm like, I want to count my days, and then I like hit 20 days and I lose count. I think I ski like 80 to 100 days a season, and I'd say I'm about like 60% in the backcountry, 60 to 70% in the backcountry, 30 to 40% in the resort.
That's a lot of
Uh,
backcountry.
yeah, that has slowly like grown from, like 10% backcountry, 90% resort, and every year it goes more and more towards backcountry, which has been like what I have found is more fulfilling for me.
Well, especially as resorts get more crowded. So before you founded Raide Research, you worked at SpaceX, which I think is just incredibly nerdy and really cool. Space is kind of my favorite thing. So I'm just curious about what you did at SpaceX and how your experience at SpaceX influenced your approach to designing backpacks.
It was an awesome place to work. Like working in a rocket factory is insane. Um, like you're
That's so
actually in the
cool.
factory all the time. And my job there was doing a lot of like testing based, so, like actually like firing an engine and like measuring the vibration from the engine instead of like theoretical modeling type of work. It was very practical, like hands-on, which was very cool. So I think like from a high level, like SpaceX just emphasized like what I mentioned before about like being problem focused and really building products to solve problems, but also instilling a certain level of like importance of like field testing. And I worked on like the reliability side of the rockets. So making sure like I'm building a reliable product and an analytical way of doing things, as well as like a work ethic to the engineering. And like the stakes are so high at
Yeah.
SpaceX,
Yeah.
working with those stakes. And like, I think the stakes are, it's different because like the stakes are really high at SpaceX, but it's not like your money. But like with Raid, it's maybe, if I mess up a backpack, I'm not going to lose $5 billion, like the cost, dollars, the cost of a rocket. But it's less, but it's my own money. So the stakes feel like even higher. And so like the discipline around building a product that can't fail is something that like I learned at SpaceX.
I like that, man. It makes a lot of sense. And it comes through with the products. And you also worked at the North Face, which you mentioned before. And what might have been some of the key projects you worked on there? And how did that experience also contribute to your expertise in outdoor gear design?
I worked on the performance outerwear team at the North Face, which is awesome because like that's the core premium product at the North Face. It's like their bread and butter. So I was there like when Futurelight was in development. I was there when Advanced Mountain Kit was in development, which is pretty small. Not a lot of people I think know about that. And just like kind of the resurgence of North Face building like really, really ultra technical premium high-end gear. And yeah, I learned a lot, like everything. Like I hadn't been in an outdoor industry company before that. So learning just the basic stuff of like what the development and production calendar looks like and how many samples you get and how you organize product information. It's all stuff I learned. And seeing just like how many people like come together to make a product, like they have a team that just does color.
Oh,
And
whoa.
yeah.
That's
And then with
impressive.
like Yeah, they have the materials team, the design team, the development team. So you get to see like how one of the best outdoor brands is doing it, and like they're doing it at like the highest level. So there's just like a million little things that I learned, and like practical things like even knowing like what factory to go into for Raid and stuff like that took away a ton.
Yeah, it sounds like North Face was the most valuable experience and learning that you got on your ascension to creating your own company. It was kind of your gateway drug, if you will, and now you're just fully addicted junkie, starting your own company. I love this.
Yeah.
So what inspired? So I mean, I see how this is playing out, but I want to hear from you. So what inspired you then to go from the North Face to starting your own company, Raide Research, and then tell us what Raide signifies for you and your brand.
I'm just a huge gear nerd. I think like I love skiing because it just merges engineering and analytical thinking with like athleticism. I liked that aspect of ski instructing. I like that aspect of backcountry skiing, how it's more than just a sport. There's a lot of mental, yeah, you got to use your head skiing. So for me, I like as I progressed as a backcountry skier, I just started to feel more and more like I didn't identify with the brand and like my needs weren't being met on the product side. And I tried like so many different things. Basically, it came to a head. I was like skiing Rainier 3 years ago. I tried a bunch of backpacks before that, using a backpack on the lighter side of things. Great pack, but like I felt like it was just aired too much towards the minimalist side
Mhm.
and it slowed me down. Like just not, it was like one of those days on Rainier, it was just like mix of sun, wind, clouds, like the temperatures were fluctuating quite a bit. I,
Shocking.
yeah, didn't
Washington.
dial in my layers. Like it wasn't a day that, you have those high gravity days where you're just feeling pretty sluggish. It was like one of those days where I was just like needing to fuel and hydrate more. And my friend that I was doing it with actually like slept on the top of a 14er a couple days before. So he was like super acclimated and just we were roped up obviously because we were like on the glacier and he's just the rope between us. I'm just like constantly getting yanked because he's
We call it
faster.
water skiing.
Yeah. And I'm just like trying to get in and out of my pack quickly. And I was just slow that day. I think there's people equate lightness with speed. And I think there's more to the story. There's more to the story than that. And I felt like a lot of brands weren't conveying that message and building product that merged being low enough in weight, not necessarily needing to be the lightest thing on the market, but with the function, the comfort, the access, the durability that actually ends up making you faster. Because if something's really light, but you're just uncomfortable, like you're not going to be moving fast. So after that trip, I like had the pack in mind, like a design for the pack in mind, and I was just going to make one and then kind of like couldn't really find someone to help me make the perfect pack. I hit up like a lot of through hiking hobbyist backpack makers. And then I was like, let me see if I can get it made in Asia and do like 100. And then I like got in touch with one of the best factories in the world. And they were like, you have to do 2000.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I guess I'll do it. And
Brave.
then all of a sudden I had like a fun company. But kind of in the process of like working on the backpack, I was like, the backpack really like embodies this category of, the way I describe it to like the really nerdy skiers, the soft goods equivalent of putting a Schema race binding on like a 115 underfoot powder ski, which is like it's balanced for I think maybe some people at other brands or like around the industry might think that's like a contradictory setup. They think you put like a free ride binding on like a free ride ski, but there's all these people that are like moving fast at a high level and finding this balance in gear that allows them to move fast but not lose their style as a skier.
Hmm.
And I wanted to create a brand that basically like embodied that in soft goods, stuff that allowed skiers and runners, which we can get to move faster in the mountains with style when they're human powered is like a key differentiator for us. So we're not doing any like lift resort stuff. It's all like gear to get people to go further, move more efficiently under their own power in the mountains.
So you had to commit to 2,000 packs, which must have
Yeah.
been a huge financial investment for you up front, maybe even having to borrow money. And you sold them all, right?
Hmm.
That's huge, dude. Congratulations. And what does the name Raid mean?
Yeah, so raid means steep, which isn't in French. They
Uh-huh.
don't quite pronounce it that way.
I'm sure it's
But
like raid.
yeah, but to me, like I really thought about my most memorable days in the mountains. And it wasn't like thinking back like 3 seasons ago, like I don't remember necessarily the crazy pow day. I don't even necessarily remember like the summits of any, like it's the steep technical objectives, like even if it's just like a steep couloir, not off a summit, like that's what I remember. If it's a super steep trail, like running in Chamonix, or maybe it mixes in a little scrambling, like in the Flatirons and Boulder, like that's the stuff that stands out for me moving in the mountains. So that's why it was like important to me that I named my company after like the word steep, because that's like what sticks out to me the most.
I think that's smart. And I think a lot of people would agree with you. It's those steep, scary days, especially if a crash or anything spicy or close call happens. Those are the days you remember. So
Yeah.
you developed this Raide 40-liter pack, and it's received a lot of praise for its innovative features, its design, its lightweight, and its mixture of all those things in a good balance. What was the initial concept for this backpack, and how did that concept evolve during the development process?
It's interesting, like as a whole, like the final product is pretty similar to what I had in mind in my head when
Whoa,
I started. But
nice.
like there was a ton of refinement to get everything right. But I had a very clear picture at the beginning, and that helped speed up the whole process. It never was like, what am I making? It was how am
Hmm.
I making what I
Hmm.
want to make, which is easier because if you have to figure out the what before you figure out the how, it takes twice as long.
Right. And then,
So
like you said, like you have these problems that you've experienced with other packs, and you want to solutionize them, if you will.
yeah, so I mean, like the overall concept was like, how can I build something that was like maybe a bit more like Alpine inspired of a pack with back panel access? Because to me, like back panel access was like the number one
Huge.
important thing. And no one was making like a back panel access pack that was light. And I thought actually like was something I wanted to carry on like a Rainier type day or a Grand Teton type day. And then there were a lot of other things that I really wanted to solve, like how can I make the helmet carry better on a pack? Because I don't like the kind of like dinky clip-on helmet carries. How can I make like a stash pocket so you can transition quicker? And tons of like little problems or goals I had for the product like that. And a lot of it was just figuring out the sizing and proportions and the right zippers to use and fabric to use and how to minimize weight and the right foam to use. So all of that stuff I had to dial in. And like the hardest part was just getting the weight to a competitive weight because like I built it and then it was just like way heavier than I thought it was going to be. And then it was just like all about how can I get
And
it to
and
the
how
weight.
did you do that? How did you trim weight?
I mean, a lot of different ways. Like one way that I think is like a little out of the box is the foam in the pack actually weighs a decent amount. So I was just like, how can I do things that maybe don't sacrifice comfort, but how can I take weight out of the foam? And so, for example, like I tried like different foam densities, different thicknesses, punching holes in the foam. And then what we landed on is like there's holes in the foam, but then also like the foam tapers from like your shoulders to like where it sits kind of near your armpit. So there you have like thicker foam where you need it up on your shoulder is like where most of the weight is getting put, and then thinner down at the bottom of the shoulder strap.
I like that. And so you covered a couple of the key features of this pack. Like I love the stash pocket. You talked about back entry. That back entry, I've never had that before. That changed my life. It's just so much easier to get stuff out instead of having your arm deep inside the pack, rummaging around, generally trying to find things by feel. When you open the back entry, you can actually find things by sight, which is much quicker. You talked about the helmet carry. What are the key features of this pack that make it stand out in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's really like all the like little things put together. But another example is like it has a removable frame. So
Hmm.
that just like makes the ski carry super secure because the ski carry is actually like attached to the frame. So it carries skis really well, even when it's not full. Because there's a lot of packs that just have like their ski carry on the front of the pack. So if it's
Hmm.
not full, there's nothing really like
Hmm.
securing the skis from bouncing all around. Some other features, it has a removable foam back panel, so you can like pull that out to drop weight or like to sit on or to use for first aid purposes. The volume's expandable, so I like wanted to build something that was like super versatile that you could use. I wanted to build something that I was excited to use for most of my days out backcountry skiing. So that was everything from like is light enough, my classic like post-work 2000 vert quick ski tour, but it's like comfortable enough and carries well enough and has the volume with with the expandability to flex up to hut trips. It's really interesting because in all my other gear in sport, I'm very specific. I have like 4 pairs of boots. I don't even know how many skis, like maybe 8 to 10 pairs of skis. And I like switching between gear so that I'm using like the best tool for the job. But with a backpack, it's different because there's just things you want to leave in your backpack for safety reasons. And you don't want to have to like switch backpacks depending on what you're doing for the day. And you develop systems based on your backpack. You know, you switch boots, your transition is going to be pretty much the same. You switch skis, your transition is going to be pretty much the same. You switch backpacks and your transition is going to be completely different. Your like avalanche rescue might be completely different. The way you organize your stuff might be completely different. And so that was really the driving factor between wanting to create a pack that I felt like was a lot more versatile than other packs in the market.
And I think we could dig down into this roll top again. So I don't know if you use that word, but essentially there's this expandable roll top. So you can have as little as you want in the pack, of course, and you can kind of roll the top away and it's just out of your way. But the normal liters of the pack is 40, but you could expand that to 50 with this roll top. So you can kind of have this expanded zone that holds 10 more liters if you're going on a hut trip, for example, as you mentioned. Then what I ended up doing is just kind of rolling the top a couple times and clipping it almost like a dry bag. And then I'm using that as a separate pocket, which I think you probably found a lot of users did. So that's where I would keep like wetter things, like maybe my skins or anything that was kind of getting exposed to snow, or just to have a separate, separate pocket on the top. And I just thought that was excellent. I really liked using it that way. And somebody actually showed me that. I think it was Jeff Dotsey. And I really loved using the pack that way. And that was ended up great. I didn't actually end up using the expandable because I didn't have any hut trips. I didn't use the hut trips last year, but I really liked having that extra pocket and then just the idea that it could be a roll top. So I'm curious what your inspiration was behind this design and how it ended up being this really main feature of the pack.
Yeah, well, I think it's cool because like I think a lot of times with good design, simple design, there can be like a lot of different ways to use a specific feature, which is really cool. So like, you can use that roll top for expandability, or like you said, you can roll it up and invert it, and then it's a pocket. I call that the gear garage. I don't know if you've done this, you can roll it like backwards on itself. And then there are these little clips to stash it so that the roll top is actually like completely stashed away. You just have the cinch top that's above the roll top, and that makes it so you don't have to like go through the roll top if you're just frequently going in and out of the top of the pack.
And I didn't know about that. I just watched the full video that you have. So I really recommend if you buy this pack, watch the whole video. Don't be like me. Continue.
Yeah. The hard thing with design is you always have sort of conflicting goals. For example, with the roll top, it's like you want to create volume expandability for increased versatility, but at the same time, roll tops are slow. It takes longer to roll it and unroll it. So how do you reconcile those two things? And so like, one day it just popped in my head. I was like thinking about tents, and with tent flies, like you have the door and you can roll up the door, and they have those snaps that allow you to like roll up the screen door or the fly door or whatever. That just popped in my head. And I was like, oh, like that completely solves the like slowness of the roll top, because like if you don't want to use it, you can stash it out of the way. But if you do, you have the volume expandability, and then you have the third use of it, which is like the divider at the top to create the gear garage. So yeah, part of it's just like trying lots of packs too. I didn't necessarily invent the roll top cinch top combo. There's an Arc'teryx pack with that. There is not another pack with like the stash system for the roll top. So that I did come up with myself. So just trying lots of gear, like learning what you like, trying it in the field, seeing how it impacts your day, and taking it and applying it in like a better way than maybe other people are doing it.
I really like that. And that's something we've done at SnowBrains that we call Frankensteining. So you just take the pieces from other places that you like, and then you put it into this Frankenstein. So it's basically the best features from all these different, products or ideas. And then I think that the Frankensteins are often the best products or the best systems or best experiences out there. And I really like the idea that you can make a feature that can be used 3 ways. Like you said, it could be out of the way, it could be an extension top, it can create that gear garage. That is where genius gear happens, especially in our field where you need it to be lightweight, you need it to be versatile, and you need it to be strong. My favorite feature, honestly, is the kangaroo pouch, I call it. I think you call it the stash pocket. That blew my mind the first day I used it. I think I showed you that Instagram story I made of it because it's like, man, I have
Mhm.
like just going to take off my jacket, or I'm just going to take off my skins, or it could even be shoes because the thing is so stretchy, and you just can stuff it in this stretchy pocket that's in the outside that doesn't even have a zipper, just clips back on, boom, you're moving again. Especially if you know you're going to have a quick transition. So, for example, you're taking off your skins. That day I was going to ski like 100 feet, so I take off my skins. I know these things are going right back on, so I just boom, 2 seconds, clip down. Literally 30 seconds later, I'm putting my skins back on. They're just super easy to get. Don't have to open anything up. I really like that, and I'm curious where you came up with the idea for that, and how it's kind of affected your design philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, again, like there are other packs that have stash pockets.
Uh,
Definitely backpacking backpacks that have an elastic stash pocket. And it's like, how do you do it well on a ski pack? How do you make all of these features function well together in a
mhm,
ski pack is the hard part. But yeah, it's all about like the goal, which is like of the product and the goal of Raid, which is like, it's not all about being the lightest thing. It's about being a balanced product. For example, like that feature really stands out to you, but that
mhm.
probably adds, like 10% to the weight, 100 to 150 grams.
Worth it.
Not like, oh, like I wish it was 100 grams lighter. You're like, oh my God, like the stash pocket made so many of my transitions faster. Yeah, it's just about being confident in that sort of decision, which is harder because it's easier to market something when you can just be like, it's the lightest.
Mhm.
It's a lot harder to market something when it's like, it's these 15 different features that like all come together in a really seamless way to make your day better in the mountains. That's a harder message to convey to a customer.
It is, yeah. I wonder if you could, but you do kind of have to have that est on the end. I wonder if you could come up with a marketing philosophy or strategy around the smartest or something like that, right? Because that there's a word in there that's somewhere around intellect or smart,
Yeah.
and balance that
To
kind of
me, it's
balances
balance.
that. Yeah, it's
Balance.
just like we're strong and light, and we're somewhere in the middle. So it'll be fun to see
Yeah.
how you develop the messaging on
And I
this
think
as you move
like
forward.
a lot of skiers go through, I think they'll like start on the free ride side of the spectrum. Maybe they'll have like a shift, or if you're older, you had a marker Duke when you first got into backcountry skiing. And
Hmm.
then this is heavy, then you bounce like way towards the light end of the spectrum. And you
Hmm.
try like some really light carbon skis and some really light bindings. And you're like, okay, like this actually, I can move faster, but I don't enjoy the down as much. And then you like land somewhere in the middle and you find your happy place. And all the Raid products that we're coming out with are like my balance, like my happy place for where I'm at as a skier and where I think a lot of people are at as well.
No, it's a great analogy and metaphor that, yeah, I think a lot of us do that. You try the heavy stuff, you try the little, really light stuff, and you end up somewhere in the middle. That seems like only the most extreme, long distance, kind of FKT type people are really going using the lightest stuff. Because I mean, the truth is, really light skis ski like shit.
Yeah.
So it's just there's no two ways around it. And light boots too, right? So I definitely am on, somewhere in the middle with most of my gear. I kind of have a heavy setup and a lighter setup. And it's been great for me because Raid, I think, is the lightest backpack I've had personally because I wasn't willing to go to the full light. So it's been a really good sweet spot for me. And in that vein of being light and strong, this pack's made from some high-end materials. One of them is called Challenge Ultra 400X fabric, which means nothing to me. So, could you explain some of these fabrics? Because I know they're light and they don't tear, but I know they're probably more expensive.
Yeah, yeah. So some people know like the word Dyneema, some people don't. Basically, like a while ago, this company developed a yarn called ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. That company branded it as Dyneema. You can think about like how Kleenex made tissue, but everyone called it Kleenex. It's the same. There's like this generic thing, like ultra high molecular weight polyethylene is like a tissue, but Dyneema patented it. So they're the only ones making it for a while. And that's why people kind of equate Dyneema and this yarn. But then like their patent expired and other companies are making fabrics now out of this yarn, ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. And Challenge is one of them. So that's like a different supplier. They've traditionally like I'll just use the word Dyneema now, even though I'm using like the generic version. It's very hard to make waterproof because it's hard to make anything stick to it. So traditionally in a lot of other packs, they'll take the yarn, they'll kind of like set it in a glue. So these yarns are just kind of floating in a glue instead of like being laminated to a glue, which makes it really not abrasion resistant. So then they'll put a face fabric on top, like a
Mhm.
traditional nylon, but that's not necessarily as abrasion resistant as if you could have had the Dyneema as the face fabric. So that was the challenge for a long time. Challenge figured out how to blend the Dyneema with some other yarns that I could stick to a laminate film to make it waterproof. So then you have the Dyneema as the face of the fabric. So the face is very abrasion resistant, and then it's also very cut resistant, but then it's also very waterproof. And so that's how it differentiates against other high-end pack fabrics. Against like your classic other nylon fabric, those are typically like not laminated, they're coated. So you might have just like nylon woven together and then a coating to make it waterproof. I think something that's not talked about in pack fabrics a lot, which is interesting, is the pack fabric that I use, Challenge Ultra 400X. It is waterproof to like pretty much 100,000 millimeters of hydrostatic head. The Gore-Tex jacket is like 20 to 30,000 millimeters of hydrostatic head. That's like how high of a column of water can sit on top of the material without it leaking through. Most pack fabrics are like 1,500. They're like 10 to 20 times less waterproof than your jacket, which is interesting because you depend on your pack to keep your jacket dry.
Right. Yeah.
If your pack's not more waterproof than your jacket, like you're kind of screwed. So I think that's interesting. Like, I'm sure a lot of people have had their packs wet out and that coating also peels off over time. So, the waterproofness of the fabric I use is definitely a differentiator along with the strength. And then it's also 100% recycled.
Oh, really? Wow. So there's a lot of win-wins there. So I think what you mentioned were all positives. What might be any of the negatives of the Dyneema fabric?
Yeah, it's definitely expensive. Obviously, like the Raide packet retailed at $400. So it's on the
That's a big part of that
side.
expense, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
the fabric is the biggest part of the expense by far.
Okay. Nice. Well, if that's the only con, we're in a good place, right? Because I think, most people are willing to pay a little extra for something that's going to last long, has good design, and is made of great materials.
I'll say the only other con is it's hard to dye it. So you pretty much only get like white, gray.
Well, I think that's pretty normal for
Not the end of
today's.
the world.
Yeah, not the end of the world. Maybe pro skiers want really bright colors for photos, but they can just go do that with their jacket or something else. But that's really cool to know. That's why it's so fun to have people like you on. That's something that none of us would ever understand. That
Yeah.
it's hard to dye. Oh, okay. So we're getting white or black. Go with it. This episode of the SnowBrains podcast is brought to you by Club Med. Calling all skiers and snowboarders, escape to the snowy peaks of Europe, Japan, China, or Canada with Club Med. Their more than 20 all-inclusive mountain resorts offer unparalleled convenience and endless adventures. Explore world-class ski resorts, indulge in authentic gourmet dining, and unwind with lively après-ski activities. Let Club Med take care of everything so you can simply relax and enjoy your ski getaway. Visit www.clubmed.us or call 1-800-CLUB-MED or call your travel advisor to discover your ski paradise. So I am really curious how you gather feedback from users and how does that feedback influence your next product iterations?
Feedback it's an interesting thing. It's actually something that I don't struggle with receiving feedback. Like I'm always happy to get feedback. I sometimes struggle with reconciling feedback with the vision that I have for a product. So I think one thing that was very interesting is I had a clear vision building the Raid Pack. I pretty much didn't tell anyone I was working on it. I had one good friend that knew I was working on it, but kind of like all the athletes on the team, like they became involved pretty much when the pack was like just about done or after it was done. In hindsight, I think it was actually really nice that I was kind of able to develop something in a vacuum. And before I necessarily had the market validation telling me that I was on the right path, didn't have like people maybe confusing me or like making me doubt if I was on the right path or not. Because people are like unbelievably opinionated about packs.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. And something about packs just makes everyone have a strong opinion. But then obviously like after I launched, got a bunch of feedback. It's easy if you say yes to everything, then all of a sudden you go from like a minimalist, well-designed product or well-balanced product to something that like is a hodgepodge of everything. And you just have to be like really true to your values. And if you receive feedback that's in line with your values, then like try to apply it. And if you receive feedback that's like not in line with your values, then don't apply the feedback. So like an example is I feel like the back panel X is really important. I get emails from people saying they like side zip more. And I tell them like there are other packs on the market that have sizes and you can use those. One thing that I think is funny that I really wrestle with is, and is probably like controversial, a little bit of a hot take that I have, is a lot of people want like the zipper puller on the avalanche tools pocket to be a different color.
No way.
Uh,
I've never heard that.
they want it to be red. And a lot of people
Uh,
have put their own zipper puller on there. And it's almost like a statement I think is like, if the difference between like on a rescue is like the zipper puller color, like you haven't practiced enough.
right.
Um, and then another thing that I have applied is like I have gotten feedback from people that they would appreciate easier access to their avalanche rescue tools. And so I
Hmm.
made some changes around that for next year. And
Hmm.
I'd say like that was maybe the most average feature on the pack was the avalanche rescue tool access was, I'd say it was average with the rest of the market. Like it wasn't necessarily worse, wasn't stand out. Next year, it'll be like, in my opinion, the best avalanche tool access on the market. That's feedback that I got that I was like, I think obviously like safety is important. So if I can address this and what I did made it heavier, but then I like put a bunch of time into developing a new back panel that canceled out the weight increase and made so now the pack pretty much the same weight as the old one.
Genius. I love your singular focus and your pushback on, people's comments and people's ideas. Have you read that book, The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand?
No,
Highly
no,
recommended for you
okay.
specifically. Read that book, man. That book changed my life. I read it a long time ago in 2006, my first year guiding in Alaska. And one of the main themes is when you have an idea and you want to create something in this world, you do it yourself. Like in that book, the idea is the very best ideas are not made by committee, because when you make something by committee, you're going to have to compromise, right? An uncompromising, singular focused idea can have a lot more power. I don't want to put any absolutes on it, right? But in my mind, I think those are the most strong, powerful ideas. So I like your approach to this. I like your approach to the feedback, and I like that you can stick with your vision. Another thing that I wanted to touch on was continuing in this vein that you're saying you're getting feedback. What might have been the things that people loved the most, and what might have been the things that people liked the least?
I'd say the thing that people liked the least was the hip buckle that I chose, the hip strap buckle.
Oh, the metal
Uh,
kind of Boy Scout buckle.
yeah, I wanted it to be metal
Hmm.
because I think the hip belt buckle, like it gets the farthest away from the pack. It's very easy to like, you put your pack down on the ground, get it stepped on, you
I
put
do
it.
that all the time, and then it's done. Broken buckle.
Yeah. And then that really impacts your day. Like if you have a broken hip
Oh,
buckle.
the pack doesn't work.
So it's tough because it's like I wanted this metal buckle going to like the traditional big buckle actually like adds weight. And I was like, like really they should really only undo their hip belt like once during the tour, once at the top. What's more important? Saving 30 grams, but you feel every step. You don't like
Hmm.
feel it, but you do. Or like maybe a slightly harder to open buckle that you experience 2 to 3 times a lap. And a big learning for me was like you experience it 2 to 3 times a lap, but like it sticks out in a customer's mind like a lot more. But then it's tough because you make decisions like that, and all of a sudden, like the pack is heavy. So that's still something I'm deciding on for next year, honestly. Like,
Ooh.
do I go like bigger plastic or bigger metal and just take the weight increase on the bigger metal, or take the durability decrease on going bigger in plastic? People like the most probably like either the stash pocket, the helmet carry, or the back panel access.
It probably depends on the person. Like me, I love that stash pocket. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing. I love that kind of the detail and information. And I like your vulnerability that you're willing to share that. And so, yeah, I guess you kind of hit this a couple times, but I think again, this is very vulnerable. What else on the current pack, do you think you'll modify or get rid of for the next generation?
Really improved the back panel. Like I'm super excited about it. Basically, the back panel was an area where I was like, I think I can decrease the weight. It's cool. It's one of those things that's like a complete win-win. I was like, basically gave myself the problem, like, can I decrease the weight? Can I increase the stiffness so it doesn't kind of bulge when you have the pack really full?
Mhm.
Can I increase the airflow or like the breathability of it against your back? And can I increase the durability of it? And I was able to do like basically accomplish all of those with the downside of just like probably making the most expensive back panel ever made in the history of backpacks,
Oh no.
which is something I just found out last week. But it's really cool because like the goal is always just to make the best product. And it's really cool. And you can like basically make something that's like no compromises from like a function perspective. So I'm really excited about that. The ice axe carry had on the current pack has like a double use. It's like the bottom of the vertical snowboard carry strap, but it's also the ice axe carry strap. But it carries two axes, but it's only one buckle. So to access both your axes, or to access one axe, you have to like undo both of them.
Mhm.
So that goes to like independent axe carry, and then the vertical snowboard carry is like a different strap now.
Oh,
Uh,
I'll appreciate that because yeah, I thought I
yeah,
carry two. I always bring two axes. Continue. Thank
yeah,
you.
that's really nice now. The ski carry is modular, so there's actually like three positions you can put the diagonal ski carry, which is really cool.
Three. Wow.
You can switch the sides of the diagonal ski carry, and now there's like a third position to make the like skimo style carry easier, so that you don't
Cool.
have to not take your pack off when you're putting your skis on your pack. So that's really cool. There's like a new top access zipper, which I'm really excited about, that I thought I was gonna hate, and then I just like tried it on a whim and kind of just have to see it and try it. But it allows you to like stuff layers into the pack a lot easier. And yeah, we're coming out with a 30-liter volume, which I'm really excited about. It's got a little bit different top than the 40-liter. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same. And then coming out with a pack in the avalanche safety realm, which
Oh
that's all I'll
wow.
say on that one, but it'll be pretty interesting. And then entering apparel as well next season,
Jeez.
which I'm extremely excited about.
Wow. Can you share anything else about the apparel?
Yeah, yeah. So there were like two products that immediately jumped to my head when I was like, the needs of the skier that I am right now are not being met.
Hmm.
Someone who likes to move fast in the mountains, do big days, but not compromise on style like at all. I think style in sport is like so important. It's one of the ways like you express yourself, like
Yeah.
is style. And I'm not willing to like compromise at all on my style when I'm in sports. So there's like a core tenet of Raid is to make stylish gear and aesthetic gear. Where I felt like function and style were not getting merged in a way that excited me at all was in ski pants.
Hmm.
And I felt like you either had to choose a stylish hard shell or like a tight and bright soft shell.
Hmm.
And I refuse to wear anything tight and bright. Um, so like I wear a hard shell pant, but I
Hmm.
live in Colorado. Like it's so dry here. Like I don't need to wear a hard shell pant. And so like I wanted to create a soft shell that, and it's a hybrid. Like it's part soft shell, part light 3-layer hard shell, breathable pant that's actually like a low bib, which also like no one makes the really like a soft shell bib. And it looks really good, and it's gonna come in some cool colors. I'm unbelievably excited about it.
I could
It's
see
really
in your smile, man. Yeah, it almost seems like that side of thing, apparel might be even more exciting to you than backpacks.
Yeah, no, it's all, I mean, at this point, like I've been using the backpack's been out and I've had the privilege of being able to use it for a while now. But like the ski pants, I was still using my old pants all last season. I'm just so excited to like use the new pants.
That's really exciting. And this is a pointed question, but so you made 2,000 packs last year. You sold them out. Congratulations. How many packs do you think you're going to make this coming year?
We're doing like 3,000.
Good. Yeah. So
Yeah.
incremental, like a huge
Yeah.
increase, actually, a 50%
Yeah.
increase. But you're making a 40-liter pack and a 30-liter pack. Are you going to make 3,000 of each of those?
No, no,
No,
just total.
3,000 total.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. Yeah. And then the apparel and any other new products for next season.
Well, so we're entering running in
Exciting.
next week.
Oh, wow.
We're launching the first running product that I'm like also extremely excited about. It has had a bigger impact on my running than the backpack has had on my skiing.
Oh,
Uh,
huge. Can
yeah,
you share the product?
yeah, it's a running belt.
Okay.
And so the reason I like skiing is like you can go anywhere on snow, like even more so than like in the
Hmm.
summer where you're like more confined to a trail. Like I
Hmm.
love the freedom of ski touring. That's why I like running, the freedom of it. Like you can go really climb up anything, you can scramble. It's really fun. Like that's what attracts me more to running than biking, where you're confined to a trail more. There's this contradictory thing, which is like to go far, you need to take a
Hmm.
running vest. But then you're like, you're wearing this thing that's tight on your chest and like constricts your breathing and makes you hotter because you have it like just so tight to your back. So for that reason, I like to use a running belt. But the
Hmm.
trade-off with other running belts is like you can't really load them up that much. You
They
can't really,
bouncy.
yeah, they're bouncy,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was like, can I create a belt that has no bounce and I can load up for a big day in the mountains? And I gave myself that problem and I tried like a bunch of different ways of doing it. And I came up with something that I really, really like. I haven't used the vest once this summer. I haven't had the chance with my schedule to do anything like super, super crazy with it, but I did like a 17-mile, 6,000 vert run.
That's
Uh,
super crazy to me, dude. Damn.
yeah, but in these days, there's people doing way crazier things. But yeah, like with just the belt. So I'm like so excited about it. I think a lot of people are going to be really happy with it.
The longest run of my life was actually a few days ago on Friday. I ran 6 miles. So
Nice.
yeah, so thanks. I feel like a badass until I heard about your
I
17
hated
mile.
running like 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And then I just started doing it more to stay fit for skiing. And then all of a sudden I started liking it. So
Trail running somewhere
happy
I've
you.
never been is really exciting. And I'm looking
Yeah.
for frogs and like animals and things. And I like to go at dawn. And I really like that. But if it's even somewhere I've been before, man, running is so painful to my brain. But that's not to say it's not super cool and it wouldn't be a good thing for me. And maybe it's in my future. But with the way my knees feel, we'll see.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you've also built your life where you can ski 300 days just at your just
well, thanks,
you
man.
can just stay fit
I'll just
skiing.
stay on snow. Yeah, hell with it.
Yeah.
And I guess I did have one question that I forgot to ask. So you're making a 40-liter pack again. You made the 40-liter pack last year. Is there a weight change or is it saying about the same?
It's getting like 20 grams heavier, I think.
Insignificant. Great. Yeah, because I wonder how much a quarter weighs. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
very.
I should weigh that. I have a scale that I just bought that's super fancy that weighs to 2 grams.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool to
So
find out. So you'll have to weigh
yeah,
that for me today and get back to me.
yeah.
So it weighs a couple quarters more than the last one. That's great. And then one other question I came up with just while we're talking that I think is a great question. How scary is it to start your own outdoor product company?
Oh my God. It's so scary because like I have some of my personal like money and assets on the line.
Of course.
Um,
Did you bring in investment?
I brought in a small investment, but I also am like using mostly debt. So like
Mhm.
I have like my house secured against like a loan
That's scary,
that
man.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
tell me
scary,
more
but
about that. What
that
are the
makes
other
me
pieces of
like
fear?
yeah, that makes me like care so much more.
Oh
So
yeah.
like, which is cool. Like I want customers to know that like it's so important to me and that care, like that importance and like what I have on the line goes into the product.
Everything you own is on the line.
One of my like core philosophies in the mountains is like don't take risk just for the sake of taking risk. Like only take risk if there's reward.
Mhm.
There would be no reason for me to take the risk of like doing Raid if I didn't think I was building the best product on the market that would like
Mhm.
actually sell. Yeah, like that's scary. I'm not a big fan of like being in front of the camera. So like
Yeah.
that's a little
And
that
now
cost.
you're the face of a company that's got people
Yeah.
excited. So you people like me are
Um,
harassing you.
yeah. And I mean, you just have to like put yourself out there, be vulnerable. It's just Raid is the manifestation of what my perspective is of how people should move in the mountains and how products should, accompany that moving in the mountains. So some people may love it, some people may hate it, but variety is the spice of life. So it can be for some people and not for others.
Very well said, man. I really like that you have, your house on the line, everything you own on the line. SnowBrains was that for me. I drove all the way up to Washington in a friend's car who lived up there to try out to be on the Rainier Mountaineering Incorporated team to be a guide on Mount Rainier. And when I got there was 18 people vying for 3 spots. And I just thought, how the hell am I going to get home if I don't get this job? The only way was through. You know what I mean? And that's where you're at. And I think
Yeah,
that creates a special focus
for
that
sure.
not everybody understands, but the people who've been through it can understand. It leads to a ferocious crash and burn potentially, but more often than not, I feel like it leads to a focus that can really get you through a laser focus that can get you through a lot of situations. And that is, I think, where you are. And that is very special. And with that focus and that energy and that perspective that you have, how do you see the snow sports gear industry, if you will, evolving in the next few years? And where might Raid Research fit into that vision?
That's a really good question that I don't know if I have a good answer to. Like, obviously,
Mhm.
I definitely like look at trends, and I think like, an interesting thing was like during COVID, so many people got into the outdoor sports, and then these
Yes.
big brands like couldn't ignore that customer base. Like they have shareholders and investors they have to be accountable to. They had to address that market. So I think you
Mhm.
saw like outdoor brands like going way more towards like the weekend warrior, even like monthly warrior type of person and making gear for that person. Also going like really heavily like on the streetwear side of things with like the
Mhm.
rise of like Gorpcore and the big brands like Solomon couldn't ignore the fact that like all these people in New York are wearing those shoes, and Arc'teryx can't ignore the fact that all these people in New York are wearing their vests and puffies. Like you can't leave that money on the table if you have investors. And I think that like alienated the core user.
Interesting.
That's what I felt as like a core customer, and like what helped was one of the driving factors that made me start Raid. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think maybe some brands will go back to like trying to address the core customer. I think that core consumer group is like now big enough. Like, there's enough people doing sports at a really high level that like companies can make a living addressing their needs, is like my core thesis in starting Raid as well.
Well, I like
Um,
that. I like kind of like what you're saying, and I think we all see that. Especially remember the old North Face fleece. That was like a core thing at first, and then it was every single person in every major
yeah,
city in the U.S. wearing that. And I think it's a cool space. I think with what you're saying with Raid Research is that everybody is wearing these big brands now just in their everyday use, where Raid can come in and really fill this niche and really speak to and be people like to have their identity be around some of these brands. So you can really speak to people's identity. It's like, hey, I have a Raid Research pack. It kind of means I'm hardcore. And
yeah.
I think it's what you're getting at. And I think I agree with you. I think that's a cool move.
Yeah. So we'll see, like maybe brands will start to go back to address that customer. I think community is obviously really important. You're seeing like running clubs and facilitating like in-person interaction is working well for a lot of brands. It's not something like Raid has really done. Yeah, it's hard for me to say. I mean, there's so many different channels of innovation, whether it's like sustainability or function or style or brand aesthetic, and there's so many different brands kind of going in there, pushing on those different fronts. And for us, it's just all about function and performance.
I absolutely agree, man. Like it's really exciting to talk to somebody who is on the front lines of this, making a new product, and making it happen. So I really appreciate you coming out. I think my last real question is, what advice would you give to aspiring designers and entrepreneurs looking to make their mark in this crazy outdoor gear industry that you're involved in now?
Yeah, I think two things. Like for me, like we talked about the risk that I've taken personally.
Hmm.
It sounds hard. It's really not. Like it's a no-brainer for me because I was just like, I have to do this. There's no scenario where I don't do this in life. I'm not necessarily like a super decisive person, but with this and what I felt like I needed to like put into the world, I was. And I think if it doesn't come easy, the process of starting the company won't come easy, but the decision I think probably should. Otherwise, it like everything else will be hard. And then I think, yeah, just like having a vision and staying true to it, like figuring out what's important to you and sticking with that is really important.
Beautifully said, man. I always tell people, to me, it's two things as well. It's go for it, which, is sort of in the vein of what you're saying,
Yeah.
is people have such a hard time moving forward, leaving things behind and just effing going for it. And then I think the key is just, you can't be afraid to fail. I almost look for failure and challenge because that is what's always made me better. It's the challenges in life that make you better, not the good times. Kyle, I appreciate your time and energy today, man. Do you have any other
Thank
thoughts?
you.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share here at the end of the show?
I don't think so. Just thank you. These are good questions. Like I've done a number of podcasts at this point, and you hit on some things that I haven't talked about before. So that was awesome.
Well, that's huge for feedback for me too, because that's our goal at SnowBrains, is to pull information and pull stories out of people that they haven't shared before, at least not in the public space.
Yeah.
So I love that, man. Well, Kyle, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Keep living the dream, man, and keep inspiring people.
Hey, back at you.
Thank you so much for listening to the SnowBrains podcast. If you like this podcast, please share with friends and family, and please make sure to subscribe. To find out more about SnowBrains, please visit us at snowbrains.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, X, and more. This episode of the SnowBrains podcast is brought to you by Club Med. Ditch the hassle and embrace the freedom of an all-inclusive ski vacation with Club Med. Their resorts in the European Alps and Canada offer the perfect blend of exhilarating skiing, exceptional service, and worry-free pampering. Enjoy having lift tickets, delicious meals, lessons for all ages, and endless après-ski fun, all included in one price. While the kids are having a blast at the supervised children's clubs, you can focus on mastering your skiing skills and creating unforgettable memories on and off the slopes. Visit www.clubmed.us or call 1-800-CLUB-MED or call your travel advisor to experience skiing without limits. This episode of the SnowBrains podcast was edited by Liam Abbott. Music by Chad Crouch. And I'm your host, creator, and director, Miles Clark.